Hey, what's up, Scott Balcom here with Imagination Creation Films, and today we're here in LA for CineGear 2022. Yeah, we're back. We're back. We're in, well, you can't really see it. It's kind of blown out in June gloom, but we're here in LA for CineGear 2022, and it's still not quite the way it was back in 2019, but it's better than it was last year. So kind of excited. We've got a few interviews we've got lined up. We're gonna show you some cool stuff. Might be a multi-part video here. We'll just, we'll have to see. Don't really know, but yeah. Let's go see what we see. Motorized Decision and Sean, and he's got some stuff to show you. Check this out.
So this is the traditional way that we've done it for years. We jog around with the Xbox or the PlayStation controller, keyframes on a timeline, and run the move. Nice, smooth, continuous, smart focus, dolly zooms in there, everything in one package. But what we're gonna show is what just came out, and you can download it on the App Store, MP_AR, check it out. So we're gonna come over here. We're gonna make a new move for you guys right now. I'm gonna call it a new move. We're gonna do a recorded move. We're gonna calibrate our scene. We're gonna calibrate our robot using this really cool little QR here. And now we're gonna start designing moves. So I'm just gonna come in here and hit record on my iPad. And anything I do, it will record all the way up top here, down here, any little banking movements I want to do like that, and we're gonna land right there on the M. Right away, we can see what this is gonna do. So it's really like the ultimate previs tool on any location. What is my robot gonna do? Where is it gonna do it? Is it gonna hit the ceiling as we're in a really small space? Can I fit this robot in here? Is it gonna hit my wall? What does the light look like? You know, like all those sort of things. Now I wanna send it for client approval. I'm gonna send out a shot of exactly what we did as a rough, you know, I'm a director in my living room and I'm trying to convey a message of what we're gonna do. Let's do that. But I actually need to show them with the object or the client's object. So let's put the client's object in there. Our client in this case is the Mandalorian. So we're just gonna put in a little model here. And now we can start making previs around an AR object right in my living room if I wanted to. And we have all of the full models of everything that we offer, Mia, Kira, Vigo, track systems in this app. So when you download it, you can previs and put it right in your living room and see if it's gonna fit or design any move. But since we're actually doing a little product shot of our logo, so let's add a target. I'm gonna switch over to target mode. We're going to grab a little target here and put it on there. So now we have a target keyframe in our shot. All we gotta do is click send to MP Studio and now it's there. You can see right on our timeline, the new move is there. That's our title of the move. And everything that we did with the iPad is showing up right there in MP Studio. If you stay watching this shot, I'm gonna show you that the iPad is actually live moving inside of MP Studio with the camera. It might be a little bit laggy right now because we're at the show with a crazy amount of Wi-Fi, but it's still all there. So we did 13.5-ish second move, and we're playing it back right away with every little bit of shake and bump and everything that the director wanted in there. So it's a repeatable handheld shot, a motion control, accurately repeatable handheld shot. So let's take a look at that right now. I'm gonna go to my starting position, and we're gonna run our move. Really fast rolls there. You can hear the robot going. So that's cool if you want that handheld feel and you want to have an action move, or you have, maybe you're fighting yourself in a scene and you need to have all the chaos but repeatable so you can switch yourself in and out or change the background. You can finally do that in a handheld style shot. So what if you just wanted a traditional bottle shot? You're actually trying to do a tabletop shot. So we're just gonna click this little C and convert that entire path to keyframes. You saw at the beginning how we do one keyframe at a time using the Xbox or jogging the controller. Now we've created 39 keyframes in about 13.5 seconds. It took me 13 seconds to create the move, 1 second to convert it, and now we have 39 keyframes worth of editable positions. So I'm just gonna lasso those keyframes, and we're gonna make them all target. Let's get the rest of these, make these target. So now we'll have, after I've target locked them, we're gonna have a more traditional motion control tabletop shot. So it's gonna look at our target that we set. It's gonna be level, it's gonna be smooth, it's gonna be, have the energy of that handheld feel to it still, but be more traditionally locked, of course still smart focus and smoother right away. And then of course we can go in and edit anything we want, but this is like a 14-second head, it's all it takes to get a huge head start on creating a motion control path, besides the previs aspect of the app.
So, I know every single time we use it's always a different environment, but
yes,
from the typical workload day of,
yes,
of a normal robot, how many more shots per day can you get by cutting down this time?
Absolutely. So the question is how many shots we can do in a day now that we've added the app. So traditionally, you saw we already are very quick. Like MP Studio is the world's most simple, intuitive motion control software for a reason. We were doing about 30 to 40 shots in a day. You can really do that. Now that we can make a new shot in exactly the real time aspect of it, it's endless. You can do hundreds of shots if you want in a day by just making them. Like the app stores every single one of those shots, and your timeline can have just a ginormous amount of shots.
Is there a share collaborative ability?
There is.
Like you have so-and-so in San Francisco that has a robot and someone else, and you want to do the same shots.
Yep. So you can send this MPAR move from the app. So the export screen had a few other things to it. So you can send straight live to MP Studio, which is what we were doing here, instantly to MP Studio. Or I can share my moves out, and it will share every single move that you've taken, the entire list of moves, which I'll show you here. So if I go back one, all of these moves that we've done the last 2 days, you can send all of those to another robot and they can run any one of them. All of them will show up in MP Studio as soon as you hit import.
And it doesn't really matter so much about the
location,
placement, because
you can
just
replace it.
it.
Exactly. Yeah. So you can replace it on their robot. They calibrate the app, bring it in. Yeah.
And is this all just included with the robot?
This is in the App Store. You can literally just buy this. Like Scott, you have an iPhone. I'll show you this. He'll scan this on here and he'll show you where it goes. So he's gonna scan this QR code and then we can show you on the app where it goes.
First time using the phone right now.
So then we're just gonna click this. And then that's where you can get it. That's what it costs. You can download it, anybody can use it. And it does everything that you saw here, plus probably more.
$50 is nothing.
It's the cheapest product that we offer.
Right.
Yeah.
Except for the shirts.
The shirts are free. Yeah.
That's kind of amazing.
We think it's going to change the way that motion control is communicated,
Yeah.
right? It's a communication tool, and the way in which it's approached for workflow.
Everybody in the robot world is trying to figure out how do we take human and convert it to robot. Because
We've
we
done
have an
that
eyeball.
here. Yeah.
That is as close as I've ever seen to the way we think as humans.
How often are we saying, I'm the director, I just want this, I'm sending you an iPhone clip, I'll airdrop it to you, do that for me. We've now given them the ability to actually do it and play it back instantly with exactly what they wanted.
Well, and I just recently posted on Facebook just a question about people who use motion control and or don't,
Exactly.
and why. And the number one reason that people didn't want to use it is the flexibility to pivot, to how to change quickly. That's
And I
pretty
posted a
quick.
comment on there, come on by the booth, check it out. And now we've solved that issue for most people who want to get the message out there that we've solved it. And our job at Motorized Precision has always been to think ahead and be the leader in what's next and how things are done. Obviously, MP Studio was a big part of that, and now MPAR is the next part of that. Yeah. Thanks for checking us out. I really think that where we're going in the future and the next things that we're working on will be really exciting, so keep following us and check us out online or on Instagram at Motorized Precision. And thanks so much.
There we go. All right, so we're here with Sean Dooley. Make sure I get the name right.
Thank you.
And with the Alexa 35, so tell us about the new beast.
So we're obviously really excited to be introducing a new camera platform. You know, it's kind of the start of a new era with a new sensor for Arri, the first time we've had one in about 12 years. And honestly, the response has been phenomenal. It's been way bigger than we expected. And so now our challenge is to actually make the things and get them into the market. But the feedback that we've got from all our launch events and from our really arduous testing process over the last 6 months has been that DPs are blown away with the dynamic range and the amount of detail you can see. For instance, if you're shooting in a daytime interior and you have hot windows, the amount of detail you can see in those windows is kind of really surprising. And we've had a bit of feedback that everyone looks on a Rec 709 monitor and then thinks they're all gone, and you flick over to log and then they're just shocked, and you have to actually make an effort to blow them out. So that's the biggest thing for me.
So before we jump into it and take a look, what were some of the most requested problems and or features and or what were VPs asking for that you wanted to solve in the Alexa 35?
So we obviously made a commitment to large format, as 4 years ago, I think, when the Alexa LF came out, and that was a really long-term project where we saw a lot of DPs requested to have a bigger canvas, right? And also it ticked the box where you could shoot for the streaming services online and have a native 4K image with an Arri camera. So then there were all the people who wanted to use their normal lenses, who wanted to use zooms, which at the time, there weren't a lot of large format zooms, and we just couldn't deliver the resolution required for Super 35. So that by far has been the #1 most requested thing for all the guys shooting TV drama. And now we can do that with the new sensor. And for us as well internally, we could have come out with a camera that had the resolution a long time ago, but we set the challenge that it had to be as good as or better than the existing Alexa sensor. And so that's why we've come out with all these other improvements in frame rate and with the unique textures and the dynamic range and the color processing, and kind of, started a real whole new way of having an Alexa. It's quite different to the old one in many ways, but it still represents the peak of digital image quality for us as a company.
So with everything, because it's kind of a new beast. It is next generation, but it's almost like you started with a clean slate, using everything that you've learned from the past and now coming out with something new. What are the big changes right off the bat that just are instantly noticeable to anybody that grabs it?
I think if you're familiar with shooting with an Alexa, you can really treat this camera in the same way and then you get all the added benefits. So it's still 800 native ISO, but then you have an extra 2.5 stops of dynamic range. So a stop and a half in the highlights and a stop in the shadows. And I think that's really noticeable, particularly for those like hot windows scenarios that I mentioned.
I'm a sucker for skies myself.
Right, exactly. Backlit clouds, fire, like the detail there. And also in this camera, we can hold color into bright areas a lot more accurately than we had with Alexa. So it's kind of funny looking at fire on screen with this camera looks like what it looks like to us in real life. And other cameras either blow out and go white or like roll off nicely into desaturated highlight tones. But this camera is really accurate enough.
I'd say the shot that impressed me the most, and I'm not difficult to please, but it was the coloring guy was showing the underwater welding scene. And when he pulled out the car, I was like, that's a beautiful image. That is really, really nice. And that's cool that much power has been packed into this.
Absolutely.
You want to kind of show around?
Yeah, sure. So we have a quick little thing. So
right in there.
it's about the same size as an Alexa Mini. You know, it's a tiny bit bigger in every direction, and with some added benefits, obviously. So there's a lot more inputs and outputs on the camera. And for the first time, we have a display back on the camera, like we did with the Alexa, but now in a smaller form factor.
About
6 user buttons here. We have the same compact recording media in here, the codecs compact drives from the Alexa Mini. They'll all work. And if you come around this side,
Exactly.
so this is where we're doing the smallest production camera thing. So we have 2 power outputs on the camera body, 24 and 12 volt. We have the same audio connector. We have 2 completely independent SDI outputs, so you can have different looks, you can have different frame lines and status information, or you can have one in SDR and one in HDR, all at 4K, 60p, no problems. So that's great. I think ACs are going to be really happy that our L-bus motors, over here, still work with the camera, with the internal radio. And then at the front, we now have like a spot where you can plug a cine tape or a focus plug unit directly into the camera. And we have an L-bus port which is hidden on the other side, again for the lens motors, which is a big deal if you were using third-party lens mounts. It was a bit of a problem before. So yeah, and apart from that, we have all these new accessories. So there's 2 sets. This is the lightweight set, designed around people who like shooting with, say, easy rigs or cine saddles or, a smaller cruise. So this whole top handle system here can slide back and forth for balance. And then this little guy is for an easy rig, so you can adjust the balance of your easy rig.
Yeah, I thought that was
moving
pretty
the top
smart,
handle.
just incorporating that, knowing that it's going to be put on an easy rig. Why not just build around that too? Yeah?
Exactly. And then the other set of accessories we have a lot more attachment points for like full dramas and stuff like that. So yeah.
And the viewfinder now, the EVS now can do HDR, is that correct?
Yeah, so it's exactly the same unit as for the Mini LF. So it's the MVF2, but now we can do up to 500 nits of peak brightness in the eyepiece.
Wow.
So you can monitor HDR on set, and it's kind of a nice way to do it because you're really, that's your own little world as a DP in the EVF. You're not looking at a big monitor or in a tent or anything like that. So,
Right.
yeah.
And then, so you went with B mount on the back, which
Yes.
is your creation kind of thing. What was the?
Yeah, kind of. So it's Arri and Bebob, the battery manufacturer, partnered to create the new mount. So for starters, it's a side-loading battery mount, like Gold Mount was, right? And it's designed to be operated with, so it's very solid on the camera and you can't pull it off, which is request number 1 from camera assistants and camera operators. It's a 24 volt system because honestly, with the amount of processing power in this camera and the amount that we have to cool the sensor, which is now that much more sensitive.
Yeah, it's basically it's a heat sink in the middle.
It's a big
wind tunnel,
chimney here with all the boards around it. So we have to be able to cool that properly and we need proper power for that. And we've decided to really make 24 volt the standard for Arri moving forward.
Okay. So all new cameras are going to be that?
Totally, and all the lighting
as well. So even if you do a
a
smaller version of this, it would be 24 volt?
So B mount and 24 volt are here to stay. I very much doubt we'll have a smaller version of this camera.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah, but for lighting as well. So you can run a Sky Panel S60 with 1 battery now, instead of having to run 2 V-Locks, for example, is a big benefit of the new battery system.
And then menu system, is it fundamentally changed or is it similar? Is it?
So if you've used any Arri digital camera, it's going to be extremely familiar. And actually the menu system is basically exactly the same as the Mini LF because it uses the same viewfinder. Obviously some of the settings are a bit different. Right. And then now, if you're not running the viewfinder, we have a display on the side of the camera, which
you can ultra compact.
Exactly. So you can change all your, exposure settings here, and you can reformat a card, and you can turn the Wi-Fi on or off, which is important because we now have an app which would give you the full menu control as well, available on your phone or iPad or anything.
So I've heard from many people who are extremely excited about texture.
Yes.
So tell me, what is texture?
So I think it's pretty cool. It's the way I think about it is that every digital camera has a texture anyway, right? There are a series of subjective decisions that the image sciences department have to make in terms of how we deal with grain, how we deal with contrast, how we deal with contrast at really fine resolutions, right? So if an image looks sharp, it's because there's a lot of contrast at fine resolutions. And we, as a company, made those decisions for Alexa, and we made the decision to actually have a little bit more grain than necessary because that's a really filmic quality. People like seeing a bit of texture in the image, and it was familiar for DPs coming out of film. And also they did a lot of research to show that if you have a 2D image that has a bit of random movement in it, it enhances our ability to see depth in an image. So that was the grain thing. And then also over the years, I've found a lot of people have said that the Alexa sensor has a softening filter in front of it, which is not the case. But what we do, we actually roll off the amount of contrast that's applied to very fine areas of detail. So things like skin or really like pixel to pixel detail, we roll off the contrast so that things don't look overly sharp or technical, etc. So that's a texture file, and every camera has one. It's those series of subjective decisions that we make. So in this camera, you could just run with a very similar texture as the Alexa, and that's by setting the default texture. But now we're giving you the option to choose a bunch. So the nostalgic texture also is kind of a low contrasty one, but we amplify the grain because we know a lot of people go through a regraining process in post. So now you can do it in camera, and that's doing it at both the digital and the analog level of the sensor, so it's baked in. In RAW or in ProRes, it's baked in. Or you might choose to have the high clarity texture, which really amplifies the amount of contrast. So if you're shooting landscapes and you want to bring out as much detail, then you would go the high clarity. Or there's a cosmetic one, which is as soft as possible with low grain, obviously for skin and stuff like that. And then we also have ones specifically for shooting night exteriors or really low-key scenes, which have a little bit of grain, but try and take the contrast out of the grain and lift the shadows as much as possible. But it's not to be confused with a LUT. They're different things. We're talking about grain and micro contrast in textures, and then contrast to the overall image and color that's still in the look file side of things, or what most people will call a LUT. So.
And so there's now on here, there's now an adjustable like highlight roll off. Is that correct? Is that what I understand?
Well, do you mean in terms of like changing your ISO and moving the dynamic range around? Or?
I guess giving it more contrast, less contrast, without just a LUT, but like.
So some of that would be dealt with within the texture file, but not a lot. It's mainly at the bottom end is where the texture file would work in terms of like how much grain and where the noise floor is sitting, and again like where the roll off and contrast in the really fine details amongst the noise is happening, so that we can get the most amount of dynamic range for night shooting. But yeah, in general the highlight roll off is kind of always the same in all of the texture files. Yeah.
Let's see. What do you think will surprise people most about the Alexa 35?
I think it's, especially with the production set, a lot of people have thought it was a big camera, but when you pick it up as just a body or a lightweight package, it's, in international measurements, less than 3 kilograms. You'll have to do the conversion for me there, Scott.
I'll go to Google.
Great, thank you. So it's kind of been shown as a massive camera, and it can be if you need that for full-on productions, but otherwise, really small and lightweight, same internal NDs, which a lot of people love. I think it's very familiar if you've used any Alexa before, but then you get all this extra dynamic range and better colors.
And so now with Alexa 35, you've also gone to expansion modules on the back.
Yeah.
Let's talk about those or show those if you
yeah, sure. So
squeeze over there.
I can jump over to this table.
Yeah.
So we have 2 new electronic modules for the camera. They bolt right to the back. It's a very integrated form factor, no cables. This is our audio module. So for the first time since the Amira camera, we now again have 2 channels of mic pre's that can be built into the camera. So they're like really high quality microphone preamps made by Sonosax.
Yeah, I was going to say that was teamed with somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So Sonosax are a Swiss company, and they do a lot of preamps for the for film, but also for the music industry. So 2 channels or a digital in, and again 2 extra power outputs. So that would be 4 accessory power outputs on the camera, plus whatever you have on your battery. And then Fred over here has our, nicely done. So this is the other option at the moment, which is the power distribution module, and that gives you 7 power accessory outputs. So there are 4 24 volts, 2 12 volts, and a D-tap at the bottom that you can put the D-tap connector in both ways, which is pretty nifty. So,
and these can stack. You put both of them on, right?
You can't put both on at the same time, only one, and then the beam out adapter would go in here for the new things. But,
Did I see a bigger module on the, I guess maybe the brochure?
So maybe one of the third-party battery adapters would also go into here.
I thought there was one that was extra thick.
No, they're both really small. They're both about 300 grams.
Okay.
So, yeah. Interesting.
All right, so close it out and tell me, give me the 1-minute spiel. Just sum it all up of what people who don't know what the Alexa 35 is bringing to the table now from what Arri has always brought. Why do they need to look and consider and see what's exciting about it? Sum it all up.
So to sum up, what's new with the Alexa 35, we have 4 mores. So we have more dynamic range. We have 17 stops now, at least, of dynamic range. We have more color. So we can capture much more saturated colors really accurately, and we can track color into really over and really underexposed areas a lot more accurately as well. And to be honest, that was never an area that people complained about with Alexa, but we've again improved it. We have more creative control so that you can use Super 35 lenses that you know and love, which wouldn't cover large format sensors. And we have the new texture files, which is a really kind of innovative way, I think, to make sure that the DP has a lot of control over what you can do with the image and leaves their mark on it because it's happening in camera and it's baked in. And if you're a commercial DP who often doesn't get to go to the grade, well, now you can ensure that your look that you set on set is going all the way through. So, yeah, we're really excited to see this out on the market. It's been a long time coming, but I'm glad that we took the time to make sure that it was right and that it's really reliable. And yeah, it's going to be an exciting few years, I think. I was going to say, how do
you may or may not be able to say, but if you could take an LF3 and put 2 of them together and make an LF, can you take an Alexa 35?
No, and that's obviously the first question that everyone has asked. And basically the reason is, with the LF3, we receive that as a big wafer and we chop it up. So we can chop out a bigger slice and make an LF or a 65. This sensor, the process for manufacturing it also puts a lot of the electronics onto the board around the sensor. It's part of the same fab, which means that we don't have wires between the analog part and the A to D converter. So the pathway that the voltage travels through before it's converted to a digital signal is a lot shorter, and that's why we have so much better noise performance, because we're lowering the noise floor because it's not susceptible. So we can't turn this camera into an LF camera because it would be a whole nother manufacturing pipeline. It's just not. So at the moment, that's what it is.
That's it. Yeah. But if you know how to do that, you probably know how to go to the next level if Arri decides.
And of course, we are really committed to large format. We have a series of beautiful lenses, and they're not going anywhere. But the LF and the Mini LF are our flagship large format cameras for at least 3 years to come, and then we'll see what happens. But at the moment, we need to concentrate on making these.
I'm a sucker for Super 35 myself. I dig it. Cool. Well, I appreciate you, sir.
Thank you so much.
All right, so that was day 1. I mean, it feels like the exact same because this is now, which was 5 minutes ago, but same video. But yeah, that was day 1, and that was some interesting stuff. I can't wait for day 2. Stay tuned. As always, as I like to leave it, don't let your passion center around your life. Let your life center around your passions.